Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I painted white lilacs and I'm going to be honest, I wonder what they look like in true lilac colour, and I'm going to paint them again this week, so you'll see. Well, my version of it anyway. I put out my usual palette of titanium white, primary yellow, raw sienna, raw amber, French ultramarine, blue, sap green and alizarin crimson. And then I did a sketch. I did a background first, mostly yellows with some green, sap green mixed in around the edges and a little titanium white to blend it. And then I did a sketch on top of that of what I thought it would look like. But halfway through, I realized my vase was just way too big. And I made that smaller. I started off by putting in a basic colour, which I think of as a shadow colour, which comes through the florets. And I didn't paint the florets individually on the entire painting. You'll see what I mean. Here I took a liner brush and raw sienna, and I indicated where the leaves would be with just a simple line. And then I also put in the stems for each flower head. And I reinforce the stems. If I'm doing roses, I use all kinds of colours on those. I use alizarin, orange, sienna, sap green. These I kept a little more simple. I just did raw sienna stems and then I went over them and reinforced them with sap green. Something else, I don't usually do this, but I put in a waterline and it wasn't entirely successful. I decided to use a flat brush and brush it downwards and hope that would soften it a little bit. And it did in parts and not in others. And I wasn't totally thrilled with the waterline, I've got to say. But I left it anyway, because in the final painting, you don't really notice that so much. The blossoms are the star of the show. And the glass vase is secondary. And what's within it is just beyond that. I used my little trick of making glass look glassy by putting in the reflection of a window. I think of it as a reflection of the window. You may have your own thoughts on this. But anyway, glass is something that builds as you go along. You add a lighter colour, a highlight, you add a shadow side, and it all builds up. With a small round, I started to put in some florets, just little 4-petaled florets, as they are on lilacs. And I decided halfway through that florets was not entirely the way to go. In the final painting, you do see some of them poking through, but I decided I needed to just stipple the florets or stipple the flowers on all together. And I thought I would get a better effect with that. So you'll see as we go on. I think it looks better when it's finished. Here, I'm just painting in florets or petal shapes. Actually, when I do hydrangeas, I do this too. I put in just straight petal shapes all over that basic colour that I've got on. And then I do a few florets over the top of that, and that's very effective. I find lilac flowers are much more relaxed looking. They're less of a firm shape than hydrangeas, say. And I was trying to achieve that relaxed look. And I wasn't entirely successful until I decided to stipple on the florets. And then I think it took on a whole better shape. to the whole flower, the blossom. Don't forget that whatever is in the vase is reflected in the vase if it's a glass vase. And so I'm stippling on some of those petal shapes into the glass to make it look a little more, I won't say realistic because I'm not a realist painter, but to give it more interest, I suppose. I haven't painted lilac in a long time and I'd sort of forgotten how to do it. And you can see these florets are a little regimented. And I just could not get the looseness of the flower. And I worked away at it so hard. I think I eventually ended up with something I liked. Let's put it that way. But it took me a long time to get there. And I think I would do it differently next time I do this. I think I'll do the main flat color on the blossom shape, then do petal shapes, and then do a couple of florets and then stipple the rest. I think I'll have an easier time of it when I try again, and I'm going to try again with more color. I like white lilacs. I think it looks lovely and simple and minimalist. But I want to do some colored ones. So I'll use the same sketch and I'll do it in lilac colors of, you know, that color, lilac, sort of purpley color with pink here and there. I'll see if I can come up with something more like you see in someone's front yard shrub. I got bored watching myself put in all those little florets, so I cut a large chunk out and just left the last one for you to see. Really, everything's the same. I'm just dabbing in these petal shapes, trying to make florets. And I feel there's a stiffness at this stage about the painting that I don't like. Lilacs are sort of floppy and they've got several shapes to each blossom head. And I didn't achieve that in this so far. But I get better as it goes on. So keep watching. And I'm trying to put in some shadow to accentuate the shapes here. And it's looking better, I think. I think it's looking better. I'm mixing up a mid-tone green to which I'll add shadow and highlight for my leaves. And I haven't got that many leaves in this painting. I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 or 5. And I don't know that they are lilac-shaped leaves. They're just leaves. I haven't looked closely enough at the pictures. I generally look things up on Google Images to see what's what when it comes to leaves and stems and flower heads. And I didn't look that closely. I was more interested in the blossoms. There, I put 5 in. 5, an odd number and a good number. You're not going to overtake the painting with just 5 leaves. It's really all about the blossom. That's the star of the show. I decided the vase should be standing on the tabletop, and I usually do my version of a wooden table, and I make it a shiny wooden table and put in a reflection. At this stage, I don't think I'd recognize that the vase was way too big for the amount of flower that I have in there. And I do adjust that later on. And I think I improved the whole painting by doing that. But here I'm just putting in the reflection, and it's just a simple couple of lines, nothing fancy, but it does give you the illusion that the vase is reflected in the tabletop. Bearing in mind that the light is coming from the right of the painting, I'm putting in shadow on my leaves. The ones on the left-hand side will be completely in shadow, and the two on the right-hand side, I think I put in partial shadow on those from the overhanging blooms. The way I do it is to mix up a mid-tone color, my basic leaf color, and then add French ultramarine blue. That's usually sap green, by the way. Then I add French ultramarine blue to make it darker for shadow, and primary yellow with a touch of titanium white to make a highlight. And that's the way I paint, basically. I do everything in the mid-tone first, and then add my shadows, and then my highlights on top of that. And I'm trying to write a book for those of you who don't like the internet as much for learning, and hope to help people with that. Here I'm stippling in some of those unopened buds you see on the tips of the flower head, the blossom head. And it's around this time that I recognize that the vase is too big, so we should be seeing me alter that soon. Here's where I get a definite improvement in the looseness of the flower heads. I start dotting in a sort of stipple effect, and that loosened the whole thing up and made it look a lot more authentic, I felt. It definitely improves it. Yeah, I'm sure it does. Here's where I adjusted. I decided to take the sides in on the vase and try and get a sort of background color in those areas that were previously white. I'm not entirely successful at that, but I think the highlight on the vase sort of takes your eye away from the background a bit, so it's not too bad. I'm okay with it. I don't know why I decided to adjust the base of the vase even further, and I think I was successful. We'll have to wait and see. But I made the vase a lot smaller and made the flowers slightly more powerful because the vase was taking over the painting, really. I try to remember always to put a shadow under the vase to set it on the table, and I think that was definitely a better shape that I ended up with. When I did add a little blossom to the tabletop, I thought that made it look more interesting as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Well, at least like and subscribe. That's important to the algorithm. It helps it find me. And thank you very much to everyone who's already done that. I so appreciate it when you do that. And I'll see you next time, and it will be with the same exact sketch, only it will be lilac colored lilacs, if that makes any sense. So bye for now.